These are this afternoon's top stories. Another firearm seized during police operation. Pre-Carnival whistle stop underway and pressure builds to fire a South Carolina deputy. Good afternoon and welcome to the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Today is Wednesday, 20th October 2015. I'm Carla Berridge. In national news, Commissioner of Police Stafford Liebert is pleased with the ongoing work of his officers in removing illegal firearms and ammunition from the streets of Bastia and Charlestown. Director of Public Information Grell Brown is reporting that on Tuesday, members of the Special Services Unit arrested 3 persons during an operation on the Southeast Peninsula and netted 1 illegal firearm with matching ammunition. That release reads, at approximately 1:25 p.m., a vehicle PA 4952, owned and driven by Abbott Richards of Irish Town, was stopped and searched. It continues, 2 other persons were in the vehicle. Terence Richard, alias JT, formerly of Newtown, but who resides in Jessup's Village, Nevis, and Eric Thompson, alias Junjun, of Ponce Pasture. ZIZ News understands that all 3 persons have been arrested and charged with illegal possession of a firearm and illegal possession of ammunition. Following on the heels of Nevis's Premier Honorable Vance Amory, the country's Deputy Prime Minister Honorable Sean Richards will be today's guest on the Working for You program on ZIZ Radio. Minister Richards, according to the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, is expected to address pertinent issues including education reform, developments at the Bastia High School, and the role and inclusion of young people in Team Unity's prosperity agenda. Working for You airs every Wednesday from ZIZ Studio from 1:30 to 3 p.m. The pre-Carnival whistle stop and mini motorcade is underway in St. Kitts as members of the organizing committee are soliciting support and sponsorship to expand this year's Junior Street Parade. That event got underway at 9 a.m. with the first stop at the Dean Glassford Primary School, then continued at the Keon, Violet Petty, Joshua Obadiah Williams, Estridge, Sadlers, Dieppe Bay, and St. Paul's Primary Schools. Other scheduled stops are Newton Ground, Sandy Point, Tyrrell Williams, Bronte Welsh, Dr. William Connor, Irish Town, Tucker Clark, and Beach Allen Primary Schools. Earlier this week, we spoke with Carnival Chairman Noah Mills, who said their goal is to get more than 1,000 children participating in this year's parade.
Is sort of what have I done, what have you done campaign where we're recruiting all members of the public to come on board, because our target is going to be to have 1,500 children on parade this year. So we're going to be going around the entire island visiting all the schools, and then we'll have one scheduled for Nevis as well.
A look at news on the regional scene. In the first United Nations vote on a resolution condemning the U.S. embargo against Cuba since the 2 countries renewed diplomatic ties, the UN voted 191 to 2 in favor of the condemnation. The only drama was based on how the United States would vote.
The world watched as history unfolded on December 17, 2014, when U.S. President Barack Obama announced a new chapter in U.S.-Cuba relations, one that included moves to normalize diplomatic and economic ties. But on Tuesday, October 27, 2015, when it came to voting on lifting the economic embargo on Cuba, the United States voted no. The U.S. was joined by Israel. The U.S. said it could not support the resolution as it failed to take into account the significant steps in the spirit of engagement. A statement also expressed disappointment in Cuba choosing to present a resolution which the U.S. said was identical to those in the past years. Cuba was swift in its response. Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez said, "What is missing is not a spirit of agreement, but facts that allow the execution of the blockade." He said his country's speech reflected its goal to move towards improvement of relations with the United States. And he told the international media that he was disappointed that the U.S. voted no. Cuban President Raul Castro's government, while working to improve ties, has made it clear that full normalization will require the complete lifting of the embargo and the return of the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay. This is the 24th year that the United Nations has condemned the embargo. Cuban officials have described it as a flagrant, massive and systematic violation of the human rights of all Cubans. Cuba estimates the economic damage of the embargo at $121 billion. While the resolution has always passed with a lopsided vote, This year's result of 191-2 was the strongest ever in Cuba's favor, with near unanimity and no abstentions. Alison Kentish, HTS News Force.
President of the St. Lucia Police Welfare Association, Cameron Laurie, is disappointed that the police officers did not take full advantage of 2 meetings with the Prime Minister last week to articulate their concerns. Sarah Peter tells us more in this report.
Disappointing. That's how the president of the Police Welfare Association, Cameron Law, has described the recent meeting with Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony. Dr. Anthony met with the officers of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force to address the implications of the imposition of the Leahy Law on St. Lucia by the United States, as well as matters relating to the Impact Investigation Report. The Leahy Amendment bars aid to foreign security forces accused of human rights violations.
I was disappointed with the level of questioning, and that the members who actually speak out at meetings did not bring out their feelings to the Prime Minister to let him know exactly how they feel. That is a disappointment. But it's an issue for the members, and the members will so dictate how the Welfare Association, handles that, even when we meet with the Prime Minister. Some persons have, speaking to them after the meeting with the Prime Minister, they have said in not so many words that it really would not have made a difference. It would not have made a difference if they'd said anything. So they rather keep it to themselves or keep their feelings and, the opinion that they have formed, leave it as it is.
Law says many of the officers felt that their concerns would not have been addressed, and hence the reason they did not pose their questions to Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony.
There are a lot of feelings, where the membership is concerned. Quite a bit of feelings. It's really, really, if I have to speak about it, and it's why I don't want to. It's sad, it's bad, but. The members had an opportunity to meet with the Prime Minister. They questioned him, so we will meet the membership again and decide how best, to move forward.
The Police Welfare Association denied the existence of a death list and has further questioned some of the findings of the Impact investigation. A televised address by Prime Minister Dr. Kenny Anthony indicated the findings of the Impact report were extremely damning and accused officers of keeping a death list as well as allegedly carrying out extrajudicial killings. For the TBS News World, I am Sarah Peter.
And internationally, the South Carolina Sheriff's deputy who was seen on video forcefully removing a student from class could lose his job. The Richland County Sheriff is expected to announce whether Ben Fields will remain on the force. The Justice Department has also launched an investigation.
Amateur video posted to social media shows Richland County Deputy Ben Fields wrapping his arm around the student's neck. Fields flips the student and her desk over and drags her across the floor.
Hands behind your back. Give me your hands. Give me your hands.
Other videos show Fields restraining the student in front of the classroom while a school administrator and stunned classmates, including Tony Robinson, looked on.
I've never seen anything so nasty looking, so sick, to the point where, other students are turning away.
The 34-year-old deputy joined the Richland County Sheriff's Office in 2004. In 2008, he was assigned to the district as a school resource officer. Fields has also been an assistant coach on the football team since at least 2012. Leon Lott is the Richland County Sheriff.
Shocked me just like it shocked everybody else.
Lott says Fields has been placed on administrative duties pending the outcome of an investigation.
It wasn't something that he self-initiated. He was asked to remove the student from the classroom. Now, did he do that properly? That's what we're going to look at.
Superintendent for Spring Valley High School, Dr. Debbie Ham, says school administrators are also investigating, and in a statement said the district will not tolerate any actions that jeopardize the safety of our students. Deputy Fields was named in a 2007 lawsuit accusing him of using excessive force in a 2005 arrest. A jury ruled in his favor. The female student in the video was not injured and released to her parents. A second female student in the classroom was arrested and charged with disturbing school.
Australia's former Prime Minister Tony Abbott has urged Europe to shut the door on refugees. Abbott says European leaders should follow Australia's example.
As Australian Prime Minister until September, Tony Abbott oversaw a tough approach towards refugees. Now he's urging European leaders to follow his example.
While Prime Minister, I was loath to give public advice, but because people smuggling is a global problem, and because Australia is the only country that's successfully defeated it, our experience should be studied.
In 2012, thousands of refugees were coming by boat via Indonesia to Australia's Christmas Island. Most, after a period in detention, were able to stay. That stopped from 2013. Abbott thinks European leaders should adopt the tactics he did.
This means turning boats around for people coming by sea. It means denying entry at the border for people with no legal right to come. And it means establishing camps for people who currently have nowhere to go. It will require some force. It will gnaw at our consciences. Yet it is the only way to prevent a tide of humanity surging through Europe and quite possibly changing it forever.
But what Australia did and is doing has been heavily criticised by the United Nations. The world's refugees might not be taking boats to Australia anymore, but they're still fleeing persecution and making desperate journeys elsewhere. Some refugees who did get to Australia just before the crackdown have now spent more than 2 years languishing in Australian-run prisons in other countries.
Abbott thinks they and those now coming to Europe are not genuine refugees.
However desperate, almost by definition, they're economic migrants because they had already escaped persecution when they decided to move again. Right now, this wholesome instinct is leading much of Europe into catastrophic error.
It's extremely tough talk in the face of scenes like these. The leader of the opposition in Australia, even though he broadly supports tough policies, says the former Prime Minister shouldn't lecture Europeans. Human rights groups and religious leaders too are appalled. Andrew Thomas, Al Jazeera, Sydney.
Taking a look at the weather. Temperatures today will peak at 82 degrees Fahrenheit with a gently breeze blowing east to east-southeast at 10 miles per hour. Skies are partly sunny with a chance of few localized showers this afternoon. Tonight is expected to be partly cloudy with a chance of showers. Sunset this evening is expected at 5:41 p.m. and sunrise for tomorrow is expected at 6:08 a.m. And that brings us to the end of the ZIZ Midday Newscast. Join us this evening for these stories and more in detail. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kyla Barrage.